Hey everybody, my name is Nick, and if you are looking for guides on Shopify development and design, then you have come to the right place. Today we are building a Shopify app, but specifically building the admin using Polaris components. This app is not very exciting. We'll be creating a tool to bulk add and remove tags from products, but it will show you how to use the Polaris components, looking at the documentation, and also utilizing the GraphQL admin API. We're going to utilize the remix template for this in JavaScript, and I'm stoked to get started. The last thing I want to mention is that I am creating a private Slack channel dedicated to Shopify development. Before you can get admitted into the group, I need to verify your name and picture via LinkedIn or similar social media profile to ensure that we are adding real people and not spammers or bots. So if you want early access to this, go to the link in the description to my site, nickdrashinsky.com, and fill out the little form there. All right, let's get started with Polaris. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the Shopify documentation, and under apps build, you have this option to scaffold an app. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to use the remix template. So the first thing, I will come to my app directory in my local environment, and I'm going to say Shopify App init, and you're going to want to make sure that you have the Shopify CLI installed. If you don't, then you'll just want to make sure you install that from Node. So you can just Google how to install Shopify CLI on Windows or on Mac, whatever you are. So I'm going to build a remix app. I'm going to use JavaScript. I'm going to select my organization, and I'm going to create it as a new app. I'm going to call it Polaris Components, since that's the focus of this video. And then it's going to take quite a bit to scaffold this, so I will check back in a moment. All right, excellent. So we can see that it's finally finished building. So I'm going to follow these next steps instructions and CD into my new directory here. And then I'm going to start the server. So let's see what happens. Shopify app dev. Select, and I don't know why it does this to me, but I always have to run this command twice because it doesn't show me all my projects. But now I think it will, and then I will pick a store, and I'm going to let them automatically update the app URL. And then I'm going to hit P so that I can preview this in my browser. All right, cool. And then you see it's giving us the kind of install interface here. See what kind of scope we have access to. Whoops. Per store owner and edit products. Okay, cool. After clicking install, we're going to be taken to this admin page. So this is like the default boilerplate that comes with the app when we install it. So it is working, but what we need to do is actually put our own code in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this into my text editor. All right, cool. So here's our code. And you can see that if I come in here to app routes and then app JSX, we have right here this app provider, nav menu, links, home, additional page. That is right here. So that's this navigation menu. And then if we want to see the actual, if we want to see the default template that's being shown, we can come into index, route JSX. And here is like the home page, right, that we have. So that's perfect. So I'm going to get started by kind of changing up this theme structure. So I'm going to create a new file, and we're going to add it to our navigation to start with. You can see that there is this app.additional right here. So this would be like the home page, I guess. And then this would be the additional. If we look at the navigation again, additional page. So this is the remix structure for how navigation and the routes work. So what I'm going to do is come into this folder, and then I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it app. And I'm going to call it add tags.jsx. And this is going to be my file to be able to add and remove tags to these products. So I guess we'll create a dummy component first. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to import a few of these things that I already know we're going to need. So use effect, use state, and use callback from React. I'm going to create the component itself. So I will do, and then I'm going to import text from Polaris, and I will show you that in just a moment. All right. And I will just have it like this for now. I'm going to check my server, make sure that I don't see any errors yet. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to go back to where our routes are being created, which is here. And I'm going to change this to add tags. All right, let's try this, save. And if I come back here and refresh, okay, cool. So I can see that I have this add remove tags. And if I click on it, I am not getting the testing data that I put in there, but it is, it does appear to be navigating to the correct URL. Okay, cool. So let's get started here and actually add some real code. And I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to change this. I'm going to call it, I'm going to make it a functional component. So then I'm going to export default. All right, cool. Let me refresh this and see what we get. Okay, cool. So I can see my testing here. So I think it wasn't showing because I was not exporting by default, which is a rookie mistake. But okay, cool. So let's take a look at the documentation and see what this Polaris stuff is all about. So I'm going to come here. All right, cool. So I can come here to the documentation, and then I can see here all the different components that we can use. And there's quite a few, right? So there's buttons, page actions, callout cards, boxes, quite a bit here. So what I was kind of thinking, when I was building this out, I wanted to build a easy way to kind of add and remove tags from products. And so the easiest way to do that would probably be having like a list and then a checkbox next to them that I can then be able to type out the tag that I want to add or remove, and then just like a button to call that out. So the first component that we're going to look at is called the resource list. So I'm going to search for it. There it is. Right here. So I was kind of looking at these different lists, and I actually almost started with like a regular description list, or, what was the other one? Something just like more simple like this. But this resource list seems to be a really good one because it has, you can easily add a few different things. So if you want to have bulk actions, which we do, it gives us these checkboxes right here, which is exactly what I was kind of talking about. So the nice thing about using Polaris is that it gives you this interface that kind of comes with a lot of things out of the box, whereas normally you have to, kind of like custom put this behavior in. So I'm going to use this resource list. And then if you look at the code for this, it actually uses this resource item. So let me see if I can show you. Okay, cool. So here's the resource item, and that's being referenced. So this is basically like what each row is going to be this component right here. And then we have, in this example, at least we have our fake data right here, the items. So what we're going to do, instead of using fake data here, we're actually going to query the Shopify Admin API so that we can get a list of our products. So to do that, you can also look at the Shopify documentation. And this is the REST admin API, but I want to use the GraphQL. Cool. And then you can come over to products somewhere, products and collections and queries and products right here. So the nice thing about this is that it gives you some pretty good like example code of how to do this. So this just gives you the straight query, but you can see right here this remix template. Well, this is exactly what we are going to be using since we're working in Remix. So this is going to be very helpful. And what we can do is I'm going to come back over to our code, and I'm going to create a function here, and it is going to be called a loader function. Now, if you don't know what a loader function is, that's totally cool. It's a Remix thing, but essentially what it is it's a function that is going to be run server side when our component is rendered. So this allows us to use like the advantages of React with client side, or excuse me, with server side API calls and such. So it can be very powerful. So this is where we actually want to be doing our queries. So the first thing I will do is when we have this loader fire, it's automatically passed a request, which we can destructure from this object. And the request is basically, the HTTP request that comes through. And then we can, Shopify makes it really easy for us to be able to authenticate this request. So in this case, since it's coming from the admin page, it's not coming from like an extension or anything like that. What we can do is we can do const admin like this, and then await authenticate admin, authenticate.admin request. That's what we want. Cool, and I think I need to add async here. All right, cool, and now we are importing authenticate from the Shopify server file. If you don't know what that is, it's this file right here where we kind of instantiate all of our session data, and then it exports lots of these different things that we can use, including authenticate. So this should authenticate us, and if that is the case, then we are able to do a query here. So I'm going to do a try catch. All right, and then I'm going to actually just copy and paste my query so that I don't mess this up. All right, so you can see that we are querying for the first 10 in this case, but you could obviously do as many as you want. And then I want their ID, their title, featured media, preview, image. So this is a really helpful tip, by the way, when you're trying to query these things, it's very easy. It's like much easier to be able to come in and test these on an admin tool. Right here, if you come to the terminal, you can see if you press G, it opens the GraphQL in your browser. So if I hit G here, it gives us this nice little interface that you can come through and you can actually test your queries here. So you'll see if I run this query, I know that it works because this is using the same access scopes that we've defined in our app. So you'll see that I get the data I want here. I have my products coming in, perfect. This is exactly what I want. So I know that works, and I can come back here, and then I just need to try to handle this response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to parse this, and then I'm going to return in JSON the data as parsed. All right, cool. So what this does is, like I said, when this component is rendered, this loader function is going to be called. And now what we can do, if it's successful, is we can handle, we get this data in our functional client-side component right here. And the way we do that is we have this function called use loader data. So we can say, I want data from, I'm going to call this actually all products, because that's what this query is for. It's going to be use loader data. I hope that imported it for us. Let's see. Yes, it did. So you can see that it imported from Remix Run React. And now at this point, I think we can test if we are actually getting this data. And it looks like we are getting an error. You defined a loader for route add tags, but didn't return anything from your loader. I think I need to add a return here in case this does not work. Let's try that, see what happens. And I did not import JSON, which comes from Remix Run node. So I can do like this. All right, let's give that a try. Okay, no errors. So let me check the console here. All right, so it looks like we are getting our data as we hoped. Here it is. So data, products, edges. Excellent. So we have successfully queried. Now we just need to handle this in our interface and use that resource list Polaris component that I was talking about so we can display this. So I'm going to come back here to the code. And then in this component, I'm going to start adding some UI. So right here in the return statement, I am going to first, we'll just start simple with the resource list. So let's go resource list. And then it takes a few parameters here. So if we come back here, you can see, all right, so it kind of comes with all of this different data right here. So I'm going to add these different props so that we can display it as we please. First one I'm going to do is the resource name. I will create a resource name variable that we will use. Then next I'm going to have items. And this is going to be from, I'm going to call it all prods, but I'm going to create this from these all products that we have. I just want to get it in the correct format so we can view it easy. Next, I'm going to do the render item, which is going to be the render item component we're going to make in just a moment. And then I'm going to do selected items, which, because remember, this is going to be the checkbox next to everyone. So I want to have the selected items. We will also correct or create on selection change. This is going to be like this. Let's see, promoted bulk actions. This is kind of cool. So this is going to be like the options when we have our things selected, the buttons that are available to click. So I'm going to call that promoted bulk actions. And there's going to be one more that's very similar to it. It's just called bulk actions. Okay, cool. So like none of these exist so far. So let's start from the top, and I'm going to add the resource name. So the first thing I will do is come down here, and I'm going to say const resource name. And what is the resource name? Well, it is this cool thing that allows us to set the name of the resource when it's plural or singular. So when it's singular, it's going to be product, right? Because we're selecting products. And then when it's plural, it's going to be products. Okay, cool. So we have that created. Next, we need to create this all prods here. So what exactly is the all prods? Well, it is going to be all of these different products that we are querying. But you'll notice when I'm getting this data, it's kind of funky. It's like data, products, edges, and then like node before we actually get the different data that I want here. And you'll see also, I should have explained in the schema, but I am getting the featured media, I'm getting the product ID, the tags that are on that, and the title of the product as well. So these are all different fields. The media so that I can have like a little avatar image next to it maybe. And then the tags, obviously, because that's what we're editing. So I want to display those as well. Okay, so let's create this filter for our all products. And the easiest way to do this, I think, is to have like a filter that goes on so that we can always have our data in like a clean object format. So the easiest way to do that and to ensure that we are actually re-rendering anytime these change is I'm going to use state. So I'm going to call this all prods. I'm going to have a set all prods right here. I'm going to use state, and I will set it initially to an empty array. And then I'm going to have a use effect here that I'm going to use anytime that my all products is changed. And then I'm going to filter this down to the way that I want the data to appear. So in this case, I'm just going to do const temp products like this. And it's going to be all products, all products. Remember, this is the product coming from the loader data. And then I'm going to do .data, .products, .edges. And that should give us data, product, edges. Okay, cool. So that gives us the array. And then I can say, I'm going to create another variable. Then it's going to do temp products .filter, or actually, sorry, .map. And then I'm going to take every one of those, and I'm going to return a object with an ID, node.id, with the title, i.node.title, and then featured media. And it's going to be i.node.featured media, .preview, .image, URL. Whew, that's a lot. And the reason I'm doing these question marks is to make sure that it does exist, because sometimes there's going to be products that don't have a featured media, and that's fine. We just don't want it to break. And if it doesn't exist, I will do empty string. And then lastly, tags, i.node.tags, or we'll just call it an empty array. Okay, cool. So I think that ought to work. And then lastly, I just need to set all prods equal to, I'll create just like that. Okay, that ought to work, and it should rerun anytime this changes. Okay, cool. So we now have our resource name, our all prods. Let's create this resource item, which is going to, or excuse me, our render item, which is going to be the functional component that we render this from. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to say const in lowercase render item, and it's going to take in that data from the item. So it's going to have the ID, title, the featured media, featured media, and then it's going to have tags. All right. And then I'm going to, let's see. So first I will return a resource item. So if we come back to the documentation here, look at this resource item. And I liked it with the media. I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm going to do it like that. We can see they have, all right, let's see, resource item. Okay, cool, text. Okay, yeah, we can do this. So I will come back here, and I'm going to use resource item like this. And I'm going to give it a few props, I think. So I'll do this, and then I'm going to say ID is equal to ID. URL, I'm not actually going to have this one link, but I'll just do this for now. And then media, it's going to be featured media, but I'm actually going to use a helper here. So I'm going to call this media, and it's going to use the avatar, which is like an image thing. So if we come back here, you can see they have this avatar right here. Avatar is also in here somewhere. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah, so you can see it's like a way to display images, right? So I'm going to use that avatar, and I'm going to say it's not a customer because it's a product image. Size, I'm going to say medium. Name is going to be title, and source, let's go with featured media. And then for media here, I can reference that. All right, cool. All right, and let's start with that. All right, and then I'm going to put in an inline grid with 3 columns. All right, and the first is going to be text. And again, you can look at all of these different components here. So like text field, where is it? Typography text right here. So you can choose all of this stuff. Text variant, body MD, font weight, bold, as, and it's going to be an H3. Body MD. All right, and then this is going to be a little bit more interesting because we are going to add because we're going to list out the tags here. So I'm going to do this tags.map. It's going to be a span key equal to the tag. I'm just going to give this a small margin here. So I'm going to say cool, and then it's going to list out that tag. Okay, hopefully that will work. And then let's see. Oh, lastly, I'm just going to list out the product ID because I want to see what that looks like as well. So I will do. All right, cool. So it's kind of weird, we're mixing like div and span with these Polaris components. Probably not the best way to do that, but I just want to give you some exposure to like how this works, how to read the documentation. So, all right, we have created the render item. Let's see, selected items. Okay, let's create the selected items. We can come back up here, I'm going to duplicate this because it's going to be very similar. And all we're going to do is create selected items. And the reason what selected items is going to be is anything that's checked, right? And we're going to set that open to, okay, an empty array. We've created that. Set selected items, check. And then, all right, bulk actions. So these are just some that I copy and pasted from the example in the documentation. So I will copy this, and then I just changed them slightly for, obviously, for like our use case here. So add tags, remove tags, see there. All right, cool. So if I save this, let's come back here. Oh, it looks like we have an issue. It looks like I forgot to close my media tag here. That's a big mistake. All right, cool. So if I come back here and refresh, I'll look at my terminal. Looks like we have a few issues. Delete icon is not defined. So I come up here and I'm going to import delete icon from Shopify Polaris icons, just like that. There we go. Let's try that. Also forgot to import avatar, so we can do that quite easily. We'll come up here. Avatar. Anything else? Do we inline grid? I also didn't import that. Okay, cool. All right, and if we look at that, now that we fixed those issues, we can see our list here. So it's taken shape. And we also see we have our bulk actions here. So this is kind of cool. I just wanted to show you real quick. The bulk actions are these drop-down ones, and then the promoted bulk actions are these standalone buttons. So here we have these ones, and then we have these ones as well. I just think that's kind of cool. All right, let's add a text box above this as well so that we can make sure that we have the ability to type in the tag we want to add or remove. So for that, I'm going to come back down to right here. And to do this, I'm going to just wrap this in a card to start with. And if you're wondering what a card is, not to worry, we can look here at layout and structure. A card is just like content that's kind of like held within something, you know, something like that. So I'm going to add it within a card. And then I'm also going to add a form here. So this form, I'm going to have a method of post. And this will make more sense in a moment when I talk about why this is so important. We can have a form, and then I'm going to have a text field. And I'm going to give it a label, tag, add or remove. Value, I'm going to call value, and I'm going to set a state for that. And then I'm going to use onChange. It's going to be, we're going to have a handle change function for that. Let's see, and then I'm going to have autocomplete. I'm going to turn that off. All right, cool. So let me come back up to my state then and create the state for this. It's going to be called value. Cool. And then I'm going to create this handle change function. So I'm going to call it const handle change. It's going to take in, well, I'm actually going to use the use callback here. Value. Cool. So now we can have our state handled for that input field. All right, this is looking pretty good so far. So let's see what happens if I save this, make sure it's still working. Oh, it looks like we forgot to add card into our imports up here. Also form, but form, I actually am going to import from remix run react. So that's going to come from here. Text field, sorry guys. All right, cool. So now we have that as we had hoped. All right, cool. So more or less the last thing that we really need to do here is we need to make sure that we can actually add or remove these tags. And to do that, we're going to have a post request. So there's this thing very similar to the loader that we created, right? So we have this loader that we call first thing. And this is when the component's first loaded, it makes this network request. That's great. But we want to be able to trigger this with the user interaction. So to do that, we have a function and it's called action. I'm going to actually just copy and paste this because it's quite large and this video is taking a lot longer than I anticipated. So if I come here, and I'm going to go right below this loader function right here. I'm going to come here, I'm going to paste this in, and it is a lot of code. I don't want to scare you. I will walk through it with you right now. So very similar. You're going to see we have the action. It takes this request, and we authenticate this request right here. Cool. Then we have this form data. So what happens is when you submit a form, you have, a form data that you're able to get this data that we want. So in this case, we want the product IDs so we can update the correct products. And then we want the tags, the tag that we're actually going to, add or remove. And then I have this other variable right here to determine whether or not this is to add or remove. The reason I added this is so that we can have one query and we can dynamically either add or remove without having to duplicate this GraphQL query. So we have this check here, make sure that we have the data we need. And then here's the actual mutation. If it is removal, then we call it this tags remove function or this mutation. And if it's not, then it's called add tags. Okay. So if we come to the documentation here and I search for tags removal, tags remove, perfect. Okay, cool. So you can see here is where we got this from. And then right above it is the tags add. So these are the two different mutations that we are using here. So I'm going to come back here. What we are doing is we are looping through each of these different product IDs because we have to make it for each product, right? And then it goes through and we create this variable, which has the product and the ID and the tags. And then we just handle this. We call this and we hope that it works. If it does, we return a success true. And then we need to be able to handle that in our functional component. So did it work, right? So the way we can do that is we can use this thing called use action data. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to call const data and it's going to be use action data. And it's going to look just like this. All right. And then this is going to be the response of that data. So if it works, it will have a success true. So there's one more thing I want to do here, and I want to be able to handle when this is successful, right? So if the update was successful, then I want to show like something on the screen. So I'm going to use state here. It's going to start out false. And then I am going to have another use effect here because I want to make sure that I update the UI effectively. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to listen for data to change. And now if data success is true, then I'm going to set successful to true. And then I'm going to do a set timeout. And I am going to, after, let's call it 2 seconds, I'm going to set it back to false because I don't want it to stay that way forever. So I'm going to do set successful, and it's going to go back to false. Okay, cool. So that should work. And then I think I just need to add that to the UI, to make sure that I'm displaying if it actually was successful. So pretty easily, I can come right under card here, and I can say, let's say successful is true. And I'm going to show text heading XL as H4. I'm going to say successfully updated. Cool. All right, this looks good. And I think I actually want to move this down here so that it's wrapped. All right, cool. Let's do this. Let's do this. Then I think there is one more thing we need to do, and that is to have a handle so we can actually call this submit, this submit of form. So the first thing we're going to do is handle a function, or create a function, sorry, so that we can handle when these bulk actions are called. So I can actually remove these because I'm not going to remove them. I just wanted to show you. But here you'll see that I copied and pasted. We have this set is removal, and then this handle tag update. So set is removal is just how we're going to be able to determine if it was in fact a removal instead of adding, right? We need to be able to tell the difference. So this will be easy. I'm going to do is removal. Set is removal. Cool. And then let's create this handle tag update. I'm going to come and actually copy this function to make it go faster here. All right, I'm going to paste that here, handle tag update. You'll see that it takes an event. We're not really using it though. We have this form data that comes from the form. We're going to append, or we're creating form data, sorry, and we're going to append the product IDs, the tag is removal, all of that good stuff. And then we submit it, and we're going to actually need to add a submit. This is kind of a cool little hook that we can use to force that form submission. So I can come up here and do this, and I think I need to add it from you submit. I think it comes from Remix run React. Okay, so from right here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the cool thing about the use submit is that we have this form down here, right? But this is what we have. We don't have a submit button in the form. Rather, we want to use these buttons that hover above. So this is going to allow us to submit that form. So let me save this, come back here. Looks like bulk actions. I need to remove that. There we go. All right, cool. So what I mean by that is I want to be able to do this, and then I want to use these two buttons. And these are not submit buttons, so we need to actually simulate that submission so that we can call the action. to actually update these. So, all right, cool. Let's do, I guess these are all kind of called the same thing. Let's do the sweatshirt. And I'm going to add, let's try this. And it was successfully updated. All right, and we see it appear right there. Now I should be able to check it, ABCD, and I can remove it. Okay, cool. And it does in fact remove. So this video ran quite long, so I was planning on showing you how to build more with Polaris components on this page. It is available on the link in the description to my GitHub. It has the code for that, but I hope that this has been helpful. You know, we've used the GraphQL sandbox to help prove our queries work. We've used the documentation, of course. We've also looked at different Polaris components and you know, how to use them, how to read the documentation a bit, see the different options that are available to us. I hope that this has been helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns in the comments, and I will see you next time.